Everybody, welcome back. Craig Schaup here with George Thomas, our film critic from the Akron Beacon Journal. George is here. And guess what, George? We're talking about movies in theaters again this week. It seems like that's been a nice reoccurring theme this summer, huh?
It's a miracle, isn't it?
It is. Well, nowadays it seems like it is. And I think that especially maybe these two movies that we're going to talk about tonight that could easily been streaming service, drops or whatever, not thinking that they'd be big box office, movies. And, here we get a couple of movies, maybe a little bit more for the adults, and maybe we'll see what kind of box office they have. But, we talked about this during our summer movie preview. We talked about both movies, but the one movie that we'll get started with was Caught Stealing, the newest movie from former Wunderkind director Darren Aronofsky. I'm a big fan of Aronofsky. I think when Aronofsky hits, he hits really well. Black Swan, The Wrestler, Requiem for a Dream. It's funny because I've always thought of Aronofsky as not being a big box office success. But then I started looking back at it. This guy has made pretty much hit after hit after hit, or at least made money back on the budget. Even The Whale, maybe the only losses he's had were from The Fountain, and probably lost a little bit on Requiem for a Dream because I don't think people are going to be, sprinting to theaters to see that subject matter. But Noah made a lot of money for him. Black Swan made a lot of money for him. So he's Mother, I think, was a little in between probably a profitability, but he's always kind of been a really intriguing director that kind of makes his own movies and does it his way while still seeming to grind out a profit. And maybe Caught Stealing could be that. What do you think?
I liked this movie and I was wary of it for the reason we talked about earlier this summer. It's buried at the end of the summer.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be. It really seriously shouldn't be because it's good.
Yeah.
It's not great, but it's good. It's entertaining. It has something to say. It has a rising star in Austin Butler. It has a great supporting cast with Regina King, and Vincent D'Onofrio, and a barely recognizable Liev Schreiber.
Yeah.
You may not know the name, but you'll recognize. Well, you can't even recognize the face in the beard. But if you know film, you know Liev Schreiber. This is a guy who probably, had he wanted to be, could have been a leading man. And he's had a couple leading roles. Yeah. He had a successful Showtime television series about a fixer in Hollywood. Yeah. And, it's a good movie. It's a solid movie. And I'm afraid that everybody's going to be out enjoying the last holiday weekend of the summer.
Right.
And the danger is this film is going to be forgotten, lost, or whatever. And it really shouldn't be because it possesses an interesting plot. And Austin Butler stars as let's call him a former baseball player, would-be baseball player with regret. He screwed up his opportunity to play Major League Baseball. He was irresponsible as a teenager. He was projected to be a high first round MLB draft pick, and he screwed it up. I won't spoil it by saying how, because it's integral to what he goes through. 11 years after this accident, is set in 1998. He's living in New York, working as a bartender when you could support yourself still as a bartender.
Yes, you could. In New York, of all places, right?
In New York.
Yeah.
And he's got a beautiful girlfriend. And, he's a borderline alcoholic. Wonder why. And, this girlfriend basically wants him to get his crap together, although she's never really out and out said it.
Right.
That changes, though, because he's got he has to have a quirky neighbor, right?
Oh, yeah.
A punk rocker named Russell. You want to talk about unrecognizable? A former Doctor Who, Michael Smith, plays Russell. Punk haircut, mohawk, colored, and all. The leather jacket, studs, everything. It's like, is that Michael Smith? Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And Russell has a family tragedy where he has to jet off to London and see his father, who's had a stroke. He leaves his cat with Hank, which is Austin Butler's character, and Hank is taking care of the cat, looking for cat food one day when these two Russians come by looking for Russell, and Hank won't give him any information. So obviously the logical thing for the Russians to do is beat the hell out of him.
Right.
The beating costs him a kidney.
Right.
But there's his girlfriend, played by Zoe Kravitz, right there ready to support him. And, even though it's not his fault what happened to him, she convinces him that indeed, yes, he needs to get his act together. Pours out all of his alcohol, except the minute she's away. Well, let me backtrack. The Russians were looking for something. It turns out Russell hid in a piece of plastic poop in the cat litter box. Mm. Hank finds it, realizes that's what the Russians were looking for, and with his life on the line, he's prepared to give it to him. Except he goes for safekeeping to ensure his life remains intact. He goes and he hides it with, and I won't tell you where, but after hiding it, he also gets trashed and forgets where it is. Mm. In the meantime, the Russians are still after him, but along comes these orthodox Jewish brothers, played by D'Onofrio and Schreiber. They're hilarious and they're terrifying. They're after him too. There's a lot of collateral damage in this movie. People die. And it's typical grimy, dark. It really is. The pleasure in it is watching how Hank is going to work his way out of this situation.
Yeah.
Pleasure comes from watching Austin Butler continue to grow as an actor. And overall, it's a very, very solid movie. Regina King is Regina King.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I liked it. And I probably shouldn't have been surprised, but given that date, I was.
Right. Well, and from the outside looking in, and one of the reasons why I doubled back on Aronofsky and some of his box office successes were, I thought, is Aronofsky making a genre movie with a rising Hollywood star to try to reassert himself into the I can get some money to make my projects again type of deal? And I'm thinking he doesn't need to do that, but then he also doesn't need to make a by the books genre movie either. And it sounds like he doesn't really do that all the time here. That like you said, there is a little bit more depth than just some end of the summer mindless genre movie.
Well, it's more mainstream than we're used to seeing.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Right. Oh yeah, especially from him.
Yeah, but he's definitely going for something above a simple crime thriller, without a doubt.
Right.
Because he gives Hank as a character something to aspire to. There's an evolution of the character that's evident on the screen. And I'm sure that's why Austin Butler took it. I mean, he can get any kind of thriller action film he wants at this point, I'm sure.
Right.
But he wanted, it looks as if he wanted something with some depth, and that's definitely here.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love, when you can read George's review at beaconjournal.com, that lead here, gritty, grimy, twisty, turny, that sounds like an Aronofsky movie. He has really, I think he's really excelled in sort of that gritty, no holds barred, like he was with Requiem for a Dream about the dangers of drug addiction. He did that very well with The Wrestler, with Mickey Rourke kind of restoring his, career to a large degree, or at least elevating it post Sin City. And of course, Black Swan really telling a really deeply disturbing movie that, you know, could have been played in a different genre from a different director. And he decided to go very dark with that. And I think that's kind of the beauty of Aronofsky, is that he's really sort of like, he doesn't play a lot of times in the studio game. I mean, he has before, but he always seems to decide that he's going to kind of make his own path. And I think he does that very well. And, you know, like you said, we talked about it. It's a weird release date, you know, late August going into the holiday weekend when most people are going to be traveling, maybe enjoying their final, you know, summer weekend essentially, you know. But I think he's looking at it like he wants to get back out there and say, I'm still Darren Aronofsky. I can still make good movies. And Austin Butler, you know, I've seen a lot of the screening, or a lot of the interviews where he said he's wanted to work with Aronofsky for a long time. So this is his opportunity to work in a, you know, non-conventional genre movie. And it sounds like, even though maybe it's flawed, that it comes together in an interesting package. And like you said, I mean, the cast here, like, you're not a also ran director is not going to get the type of heavy hitters that you're going to get in a movie like this. Regina King, you know, Liev Schreiber, D'Onofrio, Zoe Kravitz. You're not going to get those types of actors and actresses to inhabit these worlds. Even in a paycheck movie, they want to work with a director like Aronofsky. They want to chew the scenery a little bit, and that's kind of what this sounds like. So I'm excited to see that, you know, maybe it won't be a big box office success because it is R-rated, but maybe it's got an opportunity to find an audience and you know, introduce some Austin Butler fans to Darren Aronofsky's work.
It could quite be, and it's like, you know what? I don't see it doing a lot this weekend. I really don't. This is one of those movies, I can't even say you discover it going to Blockbuster on a Friday night anymore. But I just hope it doesn't get lost on some streaming service eventually, because,
well, it's a Sony movie, so I'm not even sure. I guess it would go to like Stars or something. I'm not sure if Sony has a package deal with like Universal or somebody by now. I think they still go with Stars, because I know a lot of the Spider-Man movies and Venom movies have gone on to like Stars or whatever. So it's possible that this might be a movie that if you want to see it, you might have to go to theaters unless you have Stars or something like that. But I think it's probably going to be reminiscent of Butler from last year with The Bike Riders, which wasn't a huge box office success, an R-rated movie that, you know, maybe just didn't have the legs for an audience. But, you know, maybe there's enough intrigue there with Austin Butler and some of the trailers. And I think at first I didn't really know what to expect out of this until the trailers started dropping. And then you say, okay, now it looks like a conventional, you know, chase thriller genre movie. But the expectations that it would be well done because it's Aronofsky and you've got a good team around him. So that was my thought process as I saw more of the trailers. And it sounds like, you know, maybe the way they're selling it is they're trying to sell it as R-rated, but still kind of like in that summer movie mode that maybe people might be enticed by it.
Did you ever get the impression that it was comedic though from those trailers? Because initially,
no. I will say the only reason why I thought it could be a little bit comedic is because Liev Schreiber, as an Orthodox Jew and sort of his costuming, it looked like they were going to play him for some laughs, because I think, as you said,
they do.
And most people might not really know Liev Schreiber, but if you've seen him, you know who he is. Like that's that guy. He's just a inhabitable chameleon actor that you know kind of goes in there. And then, you know, I guess if you're a sports fan, you'd probably recognize his voice on the Hard Knocks series and HBO. But I kind of figured they were playing it a little bit that way because they were dressing him in that garb. And I thought, well, maybe they're going to be serious, like psychotic, but also kind of in that humoristic vein as well, though, to try to lessen the mood of all grit and grime and all that stuff that's going on around everything.
And basically that's they're dangerous, but yeah, I can't deny that there's a few laughs with it.
Yeah. You need a good hitman. If you're going to have a good hitman or a killer, you need to have a little bit of humor in there, I think, to a degree. Pulp Fiction or In Bruges or something, where you've got, people that are like psychotic, but they're also kind of quirky. I think that sometimes you feel like these characters need to be like all serious all the time, but then sometimes you're also like, I kind of want them to be humanistic too in the way they're portrayed. I want them to have like quirks or OCD or something to kind of like bring some levity to the situation. And it sounds like that's kind of what they do here. So, I mean, it's a good way to end the summer, I suppose. A B grade from you on your review there at beaconjournal.com. Although I don't think our next movie is quite in the same category. We have The Roses. This is a movie that we also talked about on our summer movie preview. It's obviously getting that late summer release as well. A remake of The War of the Roses, 1989, with Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner. Great cast, but that's about it, right?
Well, I was looking forward to this one. That's what really bothers me.
Right.
Because of the cast. I think in the headline on the review, the term is aesthetic. And you know what? If you're going to do a movie about a disintegrating marriage, there has to be some playfulness there. And that's what The Roses is about. It grinds through the marriage of a British couple, obviously the Roses. They have a dalliance in a refrigerator where Ivy Rose works at the time. And from there on, hey, let's get married and go to America. They get to America. They have a couple kids. I can't remember Benedict Cumberbatch's character's first name, but he's a star architect in America, something he couldn't achieve in the UK until he designs a building that basically collapses during a thunderstorm in California.
Oh.
Sending his career in a tizzy. Before that happens, though, he had bought Ivy basically a seaside cafe, seafood cafe, where she could ply her trade as a chef because he'd always appreciated her cooking. During that snowstorm, a prominent restaurant critic shows up and gives the restaurant a rave, and all of a sudden, her career takes off. So we have a role reversal here. Yeah. And Benedict Cumberbatch's character is now playing Mr. Mom, for lack of a better term, and she's jetting off to Los Angeles, New York. Her restaurants earn it's either a James Beard Award or a Michelin star, and she develops a mini empire. And during this years-long process, their marriage gradually disintegrates. We can see it happening on screen, and I can appreciate that. Because director Jay Roach doesn't just go into the marriage is torn asunder immediately kind of thing. But there's no playfulness there in it happening. And at least that I can appreciate. And I'll couch it in those terms. It takes about 90 minutes into the movie to really get there. And you're subjected to not any kind of real humor. Yeah, there are the occasional acidic one-liner that may land, but for the most part, it's just mean. And you know what? You have no empathy for either character, so ultimately you don't give a damn what happens to him.
Right.
And that's the fatal flaw there. It wastes Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman for those reasons. Mm-hmm. The only thing I appreciate is, once again, Kate McKinnon coming in to steal scenes in a movie.
Right.
Yeah. I'm disappointed because I was looking forward to it, and it didn't rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
It was something other than what I thought it would be.
Yeah. Well, like you said too, you've got great talents on screen, and then Jay Roach isn't some elite director, but he's made some fun movies before, which is why you kind of feel like, how can he not splice in some of that playfulness or whatever it may be, just a little bit more non-acidic humor. But sometimes that happens. You get talent around in front, behind the screen, and it just falls apart. And it sounds like that's probably maybe why this was buried at the end of the summer. I don't think anybody anticipated a huge box office return, so they probably thought, well, let's try to see if we can capitalize on that. But ultimately, this is probably going to be a bad weekend for the box office anyway, and this movie doesn't look like it's going to score very well at the box office.
I don't know, because you have two. Let's face, Benedict Cumberbatch isn't a box office draw. He is a prestigious actor. I mean, he acts his butt off. Olivia Colman is an Oscar winner.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily put butts in seats unless Cumberbatch is playing Doctor Strange. So,
right.
It's going to be an interesting week at the box office. So.
Yeah. There's not a lot going on right now. The box office is, obviously it seems like, I don't know what you think. It just, to me, it seems like the box office. I mean, I know Weapons was a pleasant surprise for Warner Brothers, but it just seemed like the box office has fallen off the cliff here. The Fantastic Four is probably barely going to get over $500 million. Superman has had its run. The Bad Guys really didn't do super well. Freakier Friday did okay, but not elite. So it seems like we're destined for a couple of months here of not so great box office returns, unless you think something might, rise above the doldrums of September movie releases.
Well, I don't remember whether Jordan Peele is producing or directing him.
Oh, he's a producer. Yeah, him. Yeah.
So unless he's directing that, Justin Tipping is directing it. No. I don't know. I don't think so. I started working on my fall movie preview.
Yeah.
And I've gone through the list, and the only thing that I see right now with that kind of potential is probably Roofman with Channing Tatum.
Yeah. And even that, probably not going to be obviously the star power quality with Channing Tatum, but I think that's another one of those R-rated movies that probably not going to get a lot of wiggle room into the tween audience or the Gen Z audience. I think the September release schedule, outside of him, like you said, which I think him could have some box office appeal, but it is a horror movie, so it's going to be, it's going to be a debate on whether people want to go to that, especially when you're talking about sports then as well. But One Battle After Another with Leo DiCaprio and Paul Thomas Anderson, but that also, again, looks like an R-rated movie that probably isn't going to have really big legs at the box office because it's a quirky looking. If you watch the trailers, it's quirky. It's, DiCaprio. I've always had a weird thing about DiCaprio. Like, I think he's well respected, but I also believe too that the fact that he only has like one Oscar win probably leads me to believe that I don't know that his peers really care so much about him. They'll nominate him when the time comes, but there was such a in that mid 2000 the 2010s when he was just Oscar hunting with every movie. He wasn't getting nominated for like Django Unchained, for instance, when he was going super dark and nasty and mean-spirited and racist. Like everybody thought, well, that would be a shoo-in for an Oscar nomination. He didn't get one there. He probably should have won for Wolf of Wall Street over The Revenant, but that's whatever. But he's also kind of been a little bit iffy at the box office too lately. I don't know that people are just pining over him at the box office like they once were.
Well, DiCaprio by Gen Z standards is an old man these days.
Yeah, he's going to be 50, or he turned 50. So I think he's lost the Titanic charm, or whatever you want to, however you want to say it. But I mean, he's made some, he's had some recent successes at the box office, but it's, and Wolf of Wall Street was a huge success for an R-rated just raunch fest. But at the end of the day, I think, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, of course, too, but in a lot of ways, he was overshadowed a little bit there by Brad Pitt and some of just the gravitas of a Quentin Tarantino movie. But I'll be interested to see how that movie fares in September. Obviously, it's getting the awards push, but not because of the release date. It's getting the awards push because it's Paul Thomas Anderson, it's DiCaprio. Warner Brothers is going to try to sink some money into it, I think. Although I think their best bet probably would be to sink that money into Sinners. But I think they're still going to say, look, this is Paul Thomas Anderson. We want to continue working with great filmmakers and great actors. We've got to put our money where our mouth is. And even though that movie is probably not going to make its money back at the box office, we need to at least support it when it comes time for the Academy Awards.
Oh, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. It's like I don't know how to describe P.T. Anderson's career. It's just, it's always been on his terms. And, there's another guy with Cleveland roots.
Yeah.
But it's always been on his terms, and his films have always been what you said, quirky.
Yeah. And even when he makes like the prestige film, like There Will Be Blood, that movie did not make more than like $75 million. So it's not like he's a huge box office guarantee, which means why, you kind of wonder then, he comes to Warner Brothers with maybe an idea that's not quite Oscar-y worthy, like Boogie Nights or Magnolia or something like that. There Will Be Blood. And instead, it kind of seems like it's like an elevated Inherent Vice. If you saw that with Joaquin Phoenix, where it's kind of got that stoner quirkiness to it. And the trailers kind of play it off like it's kind of quirky for the quirky's sake, instead of like, I've heard Sean Penn is very good in his, military role. So maybe he'll bring some seriousness to it, but I'm wondering how all of this is going to come together. But I also realize that it's hard to bet against Paul Thomas Anderson, and it's not even really betting against Leo DiCaprio. I don't really care about him so much, more than you assume that Paul Thomas Anderson is going to find a way to bring that movie to where it needs to be, to at least be a good movie, and maybe not one of his best, but at least something that's good, and maybe, something that scores a nomination or two.
And the thing is, that's opening on what could be a loaded weekend. This is how bad the rest of the year looks. My fall preview has streaming movies in it, strictly streaming movies.
Yeah.
You were mentioning movies with box office. I forgot Tron Ares. That may be the big one.
I don't know that that's going to make money, though, honestly.
I was just going to say, even that one might be iffy because, for all of its quote unquote popularity, Tron.
It's very niche. It's like niche,
I'm thinking back to seeing the original Tron in high school. I saw it in high school.
Right, yeah. And then the quirky release of a sequel in 2010 or 2011 when that sequel came out. So it's a very strange release schedule, and it's all the good thing is that it always looks beautiful. Like Tron always looks gorgeous because of that, the way they inhabit the world and create, the light cycles and all the things that, can make cool, colors and pop. And especially nowadays with 4K and IMAX and HDR, like the expectations would be that Tron should look amazing. But I think it's just, it's too
geeky.
Cult. It's kind of like culty. Like I enjoy Tron, but I don't know that everybody, and I don't think Tron Legacy really made a ton of money. So I kind of wondered, like, okay, I'm sure they'll go back to the well because it's Disney, and why wouldn't they? but I always wondered how they would go back to the well with Tron, because it's probably more well known, I guess, than Dune, but maybe not, because Dune has a book following and things like that. And even though it's very dense, I think they've done a nice job with Denis Villeneuve making these last two movies. But Tron is sort of a different animal, because now you're trying to continue the world building, and now I guess this new movie, they're gonna be in reality instead of in the game, so to speak. But I just wonder if, you have these weird audience ages, like you said, like from 82 to like 2010 to now 2025, like it's a really hodgepodge of filmmaking, and you don't have like a Villeneuve to say, like, we've got one of the elite filmmakers behind the camera making this movie. So I am curious to see how much money that movie makes. And it is an October release, so it could go either way. It could be like, hey, there's nothing else out there, and this is the movie that's going to make money. Or it could just be a movie where people don't go to the movie theaters for a few weeks until, November or something like that.
What I was going to say before, even the original Tron, the video game was more popular than the film.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's back when video games were primarily played in arcade, in malls.
Yeah.
And that's how old I am, kids. So it was more popular than the film. And I was baffled in 2010, 2011. I was kind of thrilled because I appreciated the original movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I was kind of shocked that it was getting a sequel.
Yeah. Yeah.
That far apart, because we're talking nearly 30 years between the two films, even then. Right.
And it was not a reboot. It was a direct sequel. I mean, yes. They did not mince any words about that. They made sure that you knew it was a direct sequel, because they had, de-aging processes and all that. I mean, they had everybody in there. So I don't know that Ares is anything tied in with Tron and Tron Legacy. I'm sure there's some, but
I think Jeff Bridges shows up.
Okay.
I'd have to double check the cast list, but I'm pretty sure he shows up.
Okay. Now, is he going to be like de-aged again, or are they going to?
I have no
clue. Him in at his age.
I have no clue. It could be in flashback. It could be in something else, but I have no clue. Let's take a quick look. It wouldn't be surprising to see him. Yeah, he's listed in the cast list.
Yeah, he's like number 2. He's like the second on IMDb outside of Gillian Anderson. He's like right there. So yeah, even ahead of and I wonder too, there's not that I'm aware of every single issue that has plagued him, but I guess a lot of people were also curious as to why they would pick Jared Leto as the person they would kind of reboot Tron with, but he's not even really on the IMDb cast. Obviously, he's high up on the page view, but on the stars list, they've got Anderson, Bridges, and then Evan Peters as sort of the main 3 that lead the way. And I know that Greta Lee's in there. So there's a lot to like. Cameron Monaghan as well, Jodie Turner-Smith. So, I mean, it's a pretty deep cast, but I am curious to see if this is going to be one of those Disney gambles that might not pay off for them profit-wise.
He's been attached to this film forever.
Oh yeah, he's wanted to do a Tron movie since the last Tron movie. He's wanted to do a sequel after Tron Legacy. He was beating the door down trying to do a Tron movie. So he finally got his way. But I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see. I'm assuming the budget has to be
up there,
upwards of $200 million or so. But who knows? Maybe they Disney-fied the CGI and decided to go a little bit lower on that. But I would think that the movie's going to need to make a pretty penny for Disney to be happy about it.
$150 million, according to reports.
Well, that's not bad. I mean,
that's not exorbitant.
Yeah. I mean, that's, you're probably thinking that. I don't know if I always believe that you have to double up the production budget to add in all of the advertising costs and things like that, but it's in distribution costs. But So you're probably looking at you need 300 million to break even, maybe on that or more.
Probably.
I mean, everybody said Superman needed to make 650 or 700 million to break even, and I mean, they're already mapping out a Superman saga, and it's made a little over 600 million. So clearly, Warner Brothers is okay with what Superman has done.
That's because they're making a ton of cash in the other areas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and they had a lot of popularity after the movie's release. So I wonder if there'll be a lot of people. Maybe I'll go back to Disney Plus and check out Tron and Tron Legacy in advance of Tron Ares. But it's definitely not. I mean, I know that in my circles of friends and film lovers, Tron Ares is not really on their, peaking their radar, so to speak, but it piqued mine because I think the visual effects in Tron are just so beautiful, and I'm a nice visual stylist. I love visuals, so very interested to see how it plays out. But is there anything on the horizon? I know we're getting into September, George, which we just talked about being not so good of a month, although I guess the one saving grace for September is it is the month of the Toronto International Film Festival. So we finally will start to see hopefully some good movies, getting out there and maybe some distribution as well. But anything coming up in the next week or two for you?
No, movie-wise, I'm looking at the release calendar and there is nothing on here, which is probably why I start not the first weekend of September. It looks like there are no movies with new releases until, my calendar says nothing the first 2 Fridays of September, which accounts for the Toronto International Film Festival.
Sure. Yeah.
So, the 19th.
Maybe we can run down do you have your fall preview ready to go at some point soon, or do you want to maybe think about doing that in the next couple of weeks?
That is going to be ready to post next week, as a matter of fact. I talked to my web guy, and that'll be ready to go. And, I know you're in Tennessee now, but there is a Ohio-based streaming series where they filmed in Toledo, which is near your old stomping ground, I guess.
Yeah, it's close.
And it's from the producers of The Office.
Ah, The Paper, yes.
And I did the virtual press conference there. Started my feature. I'm going to review it next week, so that's available to us.
Okay. Well, maybe we can do that and Fall Film Festival or Fall Film Preview, I should say.
Works for me.
Okay. All right. Well, as always, you can read everything at beaconjournal.com. Follow George on all his socials. Watch the video reviews that he has there on the website as well. If you don't like reading, you can always listen to his golden voice. And George, we will see you once again for our fall movie preview. I can't wait.
All righty, sir. I look forward